It's been over 200 days since the Chiefs last took the field for a game that actually counted. Well, that wait is finally over as the Chiefs begin the 2025 season on Friday night with a matchup against the Chargers in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Now, Friday night's game will mark the second ever NFL game in the country of Brazil. And for the Chiefs, this will be the fourth country outside of the United States in which they'll have played a regular season game. They played in London in 2015, Mexico City in 2019, and Frankfurt, Germany in 2023. And what do all of those games have in common? The Chiefs won all three. And with a win on Friday, they matched the Minnesota Vikings for the most international wins of any team without a loss. The Chiefs will also become the first team in NFL history to play a regular season game in 4 different countries outside of the United States. And that doesn't even include the Chiefs' trips to Tokyo for preseason games in 1994 and 1998. The game on Friday will take place at Arena Corinthians, which is home to the Sport Club Corinthians Paulista soccer team. And even though this is technically a home game for the Chargers, I have a feeling the Chiefs are going to be well received. Now, this is the first time in a while that the Chiefs will open up the year against a divisional opponent. The last time they did that was back in 2018, also against the Chargers, and Patrick Mahomes' second ever start. And that game was a sign of things to come for Mahomes, who owns a 35-5 record against the AFC West for his career. That's the highest winning percentage for any quarterback against their own division since the 1970 merger. He's thrown for the most yards, touchdowns, and passes of at least 25 yards of any quarterback against their own division since 2018. In those 5 losses, only one was by more than 1 score, and he's also, of course, led the Chiefs to 7 division titles, the 6th most of any quarterback since divisional realignment, and overall, even predating Mahomes, the Chiefs have won 9 straight AFC West championships. Only New England has more, with 11 straight from 2009 through 2019. Mahomes was a perfect 5-0 against the AFC West last year, but in all but one of those wins, the Chiefs were held under 20 points. It was part of a strange offensive season for Kansas City last year, in which they finished 15th in points per game, but near the top of the league in other categories, such as third down offense, where they ranked 2nd at 49%, and successful play rate, where they ranked 4th. The issue was the lack of explosive plays. The Chiefs tallied just 49 plays of at least 20 yards last year. That ranked 27th in the NFL. And a big reason behind that was all the injuries Kansas City sustained early in the year. The Chiefs didn't have Hollywood Brown for most of the season last year. They lost Isaiah Pacheco in Week 2 and then Rashee Rice in Week 4. It's tough to find success if you lose your top 2 receivers and your starting running back all before October. Now, to the Chiefs' credit, they reinvented themselves mid-season last year. They signed Kareem Hunt and became a ball control sort of offense. The Chiefs recorded the most 10-play drives of any team in the league, and because of that, their 169 total possessions were the second fewest in the NFL. They just slowly chipped away down the field, averaging 5.11 yards per play. That was 23rd in the league. That formula, though, helped the Chiefs win 15 games and get back to the Super Bowl, and it was also conducive to a bunch of close finishes, and the lack of explosive plays was evident. So all offseason long, the mantra has been simple. The Chiefs want to get back to pushing the ball downfield, and we saw a little bit of that in the preseason. Hopefully, we see some more of it on Friday night. Now, the Chiefs won't have Rashee Rice on Friday. He'll be serving a 6-game suspension, but Hollywood is back, Pacheco is back, and Xavier Worthy has a chance, I think, to have a major impact. Worthy had to grow up in a hurry last year with all the injuries elsewhere on offense, and he did so with big-time success. He recorded at least 40 receiving yards in each of his final 10 games last year, catching 58 passes for 679 yards and 6 touchdowns in that span alone. From Week 11 through the Super Bowl, he averaged 7 targets, 5 catches, and 62 receiving yards per game, and his 9 total touchdowns for the year ranked 2nd among all rookies. And his biggest play of the season took place against the Chargers. It was that 54-yard bomb in Week 4. So I'd expect Worthy to have plenty of chances to impact the game on Friday as the Chiefs take on a Chargers defense that allowed the fewest points per game of any team in the league last year. They also led the league in opponent red zone touchdown percentage. They ranked 5th on third down, and they allowed 20 or fewer points in 13 games last year, most in the NFL. This group does look a little bit different this year, though. Joey Bosa is no longer in town. He's now a Buffalo Bill. And Christian Fulton, who ranked 3rd among Chargers corners in snaps last year, is now a member of the Chiefs. But they returned some familiar names like Derwin James and Khalil Mack, plus edge rusher Tuli Tuipulotu, who racked up 40 pressures and a team-leading 8.5 sacks, and inside linebacker Deion Henley is another guy to watch. He led the Chargers in defensive snaps last year and is one of the league's best young players at that position. So it should be a great test for the Chiefs' retooled offense, but as good as the Chargers were defensively last year, they did allow their share of big plays. Their 61 plays of 20 or more yards allowed were actually the 12th most in the league. And keep in mind, nobody gets off to a better start than Patrick Mahomes. You know, the Chiefs often talk about how they attack training camp harder than any other team in the league because it's going to pay off in September, and the results are in the numbers. Mahomes is 19-4 in September during his career. Only Pro Football Hall of Famer Roger Staubach owns a better winning percentage by a starting quarterback in the month of September in NFL history. Mahomes has thrown 62 touchdown passes in those games, and we'll see if he can add to those numbers right out of the gate against the Bolts. Now, it goes without saying that any resurgence for the Chiefs offensively this year begins with the protection up front. Kansas City shuffled through 4 different players at left tackle last year, and that lack of consistency was another major reason the offense struggled. Well, enter Josh Simmons, who will take over as the Chiefs' starting left tackle in 2025 after a great training camp and preseason. Simmons likely would have been selected somewhere in the top 15 of the draft several months ago had it not been for a knee injury he suffered in October, but he fell to the Chiefs and he looks to be completely healthy. He didn't miss a single day of practice during camp, and he more than held his own during the preseason, yielding 0 pressures on 28 pass blocking snaps. And listen, there's gonna be some growing pains at times. He's 22 years old, but if he and Kingsley Suamataia, who's taking over at left guard, can stabilize the left side of the Chiefs' offensive line, we all know what Patrick Mahomes can achieve with a clean pocket. Now, on the other side of the ball, the Chargers' offense is an interesting study. Quarterback Justin Herbert is coming off a great year in which he threw for 23 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, the fewest of any qualified passer. Now, this will be the second year for the Chargers under offensive coordinator Greg Roman, who loves to run the football and use play action, which we saw a ton of last season, and Herbert was very effective using it, posting the highest completion percentage, the second most completions, and the second most passing yards of any quarterback in the league off play action. That's all set up by an effective running game. And while the Chargers let last year's leading rusher, J.K. Dobbins, go, they spent a first-round pick on running back Amarion Hampton and signed veteran Najee Harris in free agency. The Chargers will likely run the ball a bunch on Friday, and that then sets up Herbert's passing attack, where he'll primarily look for second-year receiver Ladd McConkey, who led the Chargers in catches and receiving yards last year. Notably, he did the bulk of that damage out of the slot, recording the most receiving yards out of the slot by a rookie in the next-gen stats era. So McConkey is a weapon, leading a group that also includes Quentin Johnston, rookie Trey Harris, and veteran Keenan Allen, but they'll be missing a cornerstone of their offense and left tackle Rashawn Slater, who suffered a season-ending knee injury during training camp. That's a big deal, and moves second-year right tackle Joe Alt over to the left and shifts reserve tackle Trey Pipkins into the starting right tackle role. So the success of that group will be something to watch because creating pressure is key against Justin Herbert. When kept clean last year, Herbert threw 18 touchdowns and 0 interceptions while completing 71% of his passes. But when pressured, he threw just 5 touchdowns, all 3 of his picks, and he completed just over half of his passes. It's also worth mentioning that the Chargers offense struggled against the Chiefs last year, failing to top 100 rushing yards as a team in both games. It was part of another great year for the Chiefs defensively, even though they continued to get 0 credit for it nationally. In fact, since the beginning of the 2023 season, the Chiefs have posted the #1 scoring defense in the NFL at just 18.2 points allowed per game. It's also the #2 total defense in terms of yards allowed per game in that span, surrendering the 3rd fewest passing yards and the 2nd fewest first downs, while racking up the 4th most sacks of any team. That's all despite routinely playing the best offenses in the league. In that same span, the top 10 scoring offenses in the NFL have made up 30% of the Chiefs' opponents during this stretch. The Chiefs allowed 20 or fewer points in 12 games last year, second to only the Chargers. And with another season finally here, Kansas City will aim to pick right back up where they left off and take the first step toward their ultimate goal.